Hello and welcome to Board Sharks. Today we're going to be walking you through the setup and how to play of the game Quacks, the game where you try to brew potions and try not to explode. To begin setup, put the scoreboard in the middle of the table and put the flame marker on the round 1 space. Put the shuffled fortune teller deck face down next to the scoreboard. Pick a set of ingredient books to use in this game, 1, 2, 3, or 4. And put them somewhere visible to everybody. If this is your first time playing, we recommend picking one. The set is indicated by the number of bookmarks on them, 1 through 4, on the bottom left. Again, if this is your first time, we recommend playing with just one bookmark. The orange pumpkin uses the same bookmark in every game, so the orange pumpkin will always be placed out. The black moth also uses the same book in every game, but one side is for a 2-player game and the other side is for a 3- and 4-player game, shown by the number of cauldron icons on its bottom left instead of bookmarks. For your first game, use the book with one bookmark. They're the best introduction to the game. For future games, we will just be able to flip over and play with different sides. Sort the ingredients tokens into 3 big piles of 1, 2, and 3 plus value tokens. The colors are going to be mixed, but it's okay. You want to separate them out this way because every time you play the game going forward, the piles are going to remain the same. So separate them out now. Everyone takes a cauldron board and scoring marker of their color choice, plus a bag. The cauldron should be on the side showing the book at the bottom, not the test tubes. In additional games, you can flip over and use the test tubes. For beginners, we're going to use the book side. Everyone puts their scoring marker next to the 1 victory point space of the scoreboard track with their player symbol face up. The 50 side of the marker is for if you ever cross 50 points and go back to the 1 space. Everybody puts their droplet marker on the first space at the center of the cauldron. There's a second droplet marker in the box, but you only need that when we're playing the variation. Everyone puts their rat marker in the bowl. Everyone puts their flask full side up on the silver tray. Everyone puts a ruby to the left of the cauldron, and then everyone puts 9 ingredients tokens in their bag. You're going to take 4 white 1 boomberry tokens, 2 white 2 boomberry tokens, 1 white 3 boomberry token, 1 orange 1 pumpkin token, and 1 green 1 spider token. With all that done, you are now ready to play the game. Now that you're all set up and ready to play, let's get into it. Every round starts by flipping the fortune teller card and reading what the card does. The fortune teller card will have 2 sides, either a purple, which happens immediately, or a blue that has an effect where you have to reach the conditions. You'll see later on how that works. Brewing potions is the main part of the gameplay. There's no turn order for this. Everyone just goes at once, and you continue until you either decide to stop or you decide to explode. So what does that mean? You draw 1 token out of your bag at a time, and based on the number of the token, you place that 1 spot, 2 spots, or 3 spots ahead of where your current token is. So for your very first draw, let's say you draw an orange pumpkin. You're going to put that 1 spot ahead of your little flame marker in the middle of the cauldron. So for beginning of the game, that would be spot 1. If you draw a 2 token, you're going to place that token 2 tokens ahead of where your current token is. So in this example, you would place the 2 on the 3 because you would skip the 2 and go to 3. Now let's say on your next draw, you draw 3. That's going to go 3 spaces ahead. So in this example, that's going to go 4, 5, and 6. And so on and so forth. The object of the game is to get as far along your cauldron as you can without exploding, and you can always opt when to stop. So you explode in this game when your potion goes over 7. So if you're at 7, you're fine. If you're under 7, you're fine. Only when you go above 7, so 8 and beyond, does your potion explode. And we'll talk about the negative effects of exploding later. Some ingredient effects have immediate actions that have to be placed. The blue skull, for example, allows you to draw multiple things and place it. We'll go over the effects later, but just know that some of them have immediate effects and some of them have effects at the end of the round. Stopping or exploding. You can decide to stop at any time before you explode. in which case you'll get the full benefits of the end of the round. If you do explode, what that means for you is that when we go into the scoring phase later, you can choose between victory points or shopping at the market, but you cannot choose both. So that is the big downside of exploding. So 8 or more and you explode. Using your flask. This is the kind of complicated part about this. Your flask is your best resource to prevent explosions. When it's full, you can flip it over to return a boomberry token you just drew to your bag. You can only use the flask on your most recent token, so you have to decide immediately when you draw a boomberry. You can only use your flask if it's full. Thankfully, there will always be ways to refill it later on. And flasks aren't all powerful. If drawing a white boomberry causes your cauldron to explode, you can't use the flask to prevent that. So what that means is if you are at, say, 3, and you draw the 3 boomberry, you haven't exploded yet, but you're very close. So you can choose to use your flask to put that boomberry back into your bag and try again. But that doesn't mean that you won't just immediately redraw that 3 and everyone will laugh at you. Let's talk about what happens when everybody's done. So when everyone is done choosing whether to stay or to explode, you go into the end of the phase, and that is denoted by the markers here along at the bottom. So the first thing you do is you roll the bonus die. So whoever got the furthest without exploding gets to roll the bonus die. If there's a tie, all tied players get to roll the bonus die. The bonus die includes things like 1 victory point, 2 victory points, a free ruby, moving your droplet a space forward, and taking an orange pumpkin token and putting it in your bag. The next spot along the track is your effects that happen at the end of the round. So earlier we discussed there are things with immediate effects and there are things with effects at the end of the round. This is when you would resolve those effects. And we'll go into those effects in a little bit. The next thing you do is if you stopped on a spot where the next spot is a ruby, you get to take a ruby. Then you score your victory points if you didn't explode. Now again, just a quick recap, if you did explode, you have to choose between victory points and market shopping. So now would be when you choose between scoring victory points or going to market. But if you didn't explode, you score your points, which is the little square on the bottom left of the space after where you stopped. After scoring victory points, you go to the market phase. The market number is the bigger number next to the victory points that we just scored, the one in the middle of the space. So for example, if you stopped on 22 and the next one is a 23, you have 23 points to spend. Make sure to reference the books that are out on the table for how much each piece costs, and that's essentially how much you can spend. Just worth noting, you can only ever buy 2 things per round, and they cannot ever be the same thing. So you can't buy, say, 2 purple ghosts or 2 mushrooms in the same round. They have to be different things, and you can only buy 2, no matter how much you have left over. After you've done the market phase, the next phase is spending rubies. This is if you have extra rubies, you can spend 2 rubies to do the following effects. You can either spend 2 rubies to move your flame token forward 1 space. You can spend 2 rubies to refill your flask. You can take any amount of actions in this phase depending on the number of rubies you have. So if you have 6 rubies, you can take this action 3 times in 1 round. It just depends on what you want to do. And finally is the rats phase. Everyone except the lead player gets help from their rat assistants to improve their potions next round. Essentially all this means is that there is a catch-up mechanic. So the lead player does not get any benefit from this, but players behind the lead player count the number of tails in between them and the lead player and move their rat token that many tokens ahead of their flame token. So if there's 2 rat tails between you and the leader, you would move your rat token 2 spaces ahead of your flame token. That means that you start the round 1 space ahead of wherever the rat is. So it's essentially a little boost to the people who need help catching up. And once that's completed, you move on to the next round. In the first round, you cannot purchase mandrakes or purple ghosts. At the end of round 2, you can start purchasing mandrakes. At the end of round 3, you can start purchasing ghosts. And in round 6, everyone adds 1 additional boomberry token to their bag. Those are the only things to keep track of for most of the rounds. And we'll go over final scoring now. So at the end of round 9, you go into the scoring round, and the only main thing that changes is the final shopping round. So we talked earlier about that green cloud, which meant the going to market phase or the shopping phase. That is different in the last round. And the only thing that changes is for every 5 money, which again is the big points in the middle of the cloud, you gain 1 victory point. And for every 2 extra rubies you have, you also gain 1 victory point. Other than that, you just count up what's already on your board as far as points, and the winner is whoever got the farthest. If there's a tie, the player whose final space is the farthest out in their cauldron in the final round wins. If there's still a tie, then unfortunately it just ends in a tie. After your first couple games and you're getting used to the rules, you can try different books by flipping them over or changing books, and you can also flip over your cauldron and play with the test tubes. The test tubes is where your second flame marker comes in handy, and that just allows you, as you pass things on your flame marker, so any effect that would normally cause your flame marker to move forward 1, you can now choose between the one in your cauldron or the one at the bottom of your cauldron. Every time a flame marker goes over a test tube, you get that effect. So for example, if a ruby is in your first test tube and you go 2 droplets over it, you get that ruby, etc. Now we're going to go over the beginner book details. There are further bookmarks later in the game, and you're welcome to explore those, but we're just going to get you set up for a beginner. The orange pumpkins. Orange tokens don't have any effect when placed in your cauldron. The orange book doesn't have a bookmark because it's the same for every game of Quacks. An orange 1 can never be upgraded to an orange 6. So essentially all the pumpkins are is just 1 space that's not a boomberry. The blue skulls with 1 bookmark. After placing this token, look at its printed value, draw that number of additional tokens from your bag. You can place any one of those tokens into your cauldron immediately and resolve any effects, then put the other tokens back in the bag. Note that placing an extra token is optional. Also note that these chain together, so if you choose a 1 blue skull and you draw a blue skull and you put that down, you've resolved the effect immediately and you draw another effect. The red toadstools on 1 bookmark. Move this token extra spaces forward if you have previously placed orange tokens in your cauldron. If you have 1 or 2 orange tokens, move it 1 extra space forward. If you have 3 or more orange tokens, move it 2 extra. It doesn't matter that the token values are or where they're placed in the cauldron. So again, if you have 1 or 2, you get 1 extra space. If you have 3 or more, you get 2 extra spaces. This resolves immediately. This is one of the books that resolves immediately. The yellow mandrakes on 1 bookmark. When you place this token, look at the most recent token you placed before it. If that token is white, you can put it back in your bag. Putting a white token back doesn't change the yellow token's placement location. For example, if a white 1 is on a space 1, and then a yellow 1 is placed on space 2, the yellow token stays on space 2 after the white token is put back in the bag. So for those of you that doesn't make sense, if you were to place a white 3 and go 3 spaces, and then a yellow 2 and go 2 spaces, that one would still remain on the 5 even though the 3 gets picked up. So you've essentially gained 5 spaces, which is pretty cool. This effect happens immediately. Moving on to the books where the effect is done at the end of the round, when we were talking about that phase 2 of the bonus in between each round. The black moths in 2-player games. Both players count up and say how many black tokens they have in their cauldron. If you have the same number as the other player, move your droplet marker 1 space forward. If you have more black tokens than the other player, move your droplet marker 1 space forward and take a ruby from the supply. In a 3+ player game, everyone counts up and says how many black tokens they have in their cauldron. If you have more tokens than one of your neighbors, move your droplet marker 1 space forward. If you have more than both of your neighbors, move your droplet space 1 space forward and take a ruby from the supply. This is resolved at the end of the round. Green spiders on 1 bookmark. If this token is one of the final 2 placed in your cauldron this round, take a ruby. For example, if you place an orange token, then a green token, then decide to stop, the green token was last and you take 1 ruby. If the final 2 tokens you placed were both green, you take 2 rubies. Note that if you place a green spider and then you place something that causes you to explode, you still get your ruby. And finally, purple ghosts on 1 bookmark. Count up the number of purple tokens in your cauldron. If you have 1 purple token, you score 1 victory point. If you have 2 purple tokens, you score 1 victory point and take a ruby. If you have 3 or more purple tokens, score 2 victory points, and move your droplet forward 1 space. This is pretty straightforward and happens at the end of the round.